What if I told you that you could manage your money using the exact same strategy as the top 1%? And get this, it's not about how much you earn. It's actually about a really simple but super powerful framework that can turn literally any income into a wealth building engine. And today, we're going to break it all down. Okay, so where do we even begin? Well, first things first, we've got to understand how the wealthiest people on the planet actually hold their wealth. Because let me tell you, the answer, it's probably not what you're thinking. All right, take a really close look at these numbers. See that big slice? A full 75% are entrepreneurs. And what's missing? You don't see salaried employees anywhere on this list, do you? These folks didn't just earn their way to the top with a paycheck. No, they built something of value. So what's the common thread that ties them all together? It's one word: ownership, right? Entrepreneurs own businesses. Investors own assets. Heck, even top athletes own a rare, monetizable skill: ownership. That is the engine of wealth generation, and that's the key we're going to be laser focused on. And this quote, wow, it just hits you, right? It illustrates such a stark reality. See, if your only financial tool is your next paycheck, you're not really free. You're caught in a cycle, a trap that keeps you working just to cover the basics, with absolutely nothing left over to build your own freedom. But here's the good news. There is a way to break that cycle and start building that ownership for yourself. And it all comes down to a simple but incredibly powerful framework that gives every single dollar you earn a very specific job to do. All right, let's dive right into the first part of the rule. This is the 25% that's all about building your wealth engine. This is where your money finally starts working for you instead of you always working for it. So here's the deal. Before you pay a single bill, before rent, before groceries, before anything, you take the first quarter of your income and you plant it. You plant it in assets. These are things that grow in value and can generate more money for you while you're sleeping or working or just out living your life. Now, you might be thinking, okay, but I don't have a lot of money to start with. And listen, I get it. But the truth is, when you start is so much more important than how much you start with. Let me show you exactly why waiting is pretty much the most expensive financial mistake you can ever make. Okay, let's look at a little story. Let's meet Billy and Phil. So Billy starts investing at just 20 years old, putting in only $200 a month. Now Phil, he waits a whole decade to get started. But to try and catch up, he invests more, $300 a month. Over their lifetimes, Phil actually puts in more of his own cash. So logically, he should end up with more money, right? Well, let's see what happens. Yeah, not even close. Assuming a 10% average annual return, which is about the historical average of the S&P 500, Billy's investment grows to over $1.2 million. Phil's? It's just under $700,000. My friends, that is the incredible, almost magical power of compound growth in action. Let that sink in for a second. Billy invested $12,000 less than Phil, but ended up with nearly $600,000 more. Now, that's not a typo. That extra decade, that extra time for his money to work for him was worth over $500,000. Time, my friends, is your single greatest asset. So, okay, how do you actually put this into practice? It's really just a simple 3-step process. First, you pick your assets. Something like low-cost index funds are a fantastic place to start. Second, use tax-advantaged accounts, things like an ISA or a Roth IRA. They're basically designed to help your investments grow tax-free. And third, and this is key, automate it. Set it and forget it. Set it up one time and just let it run on its own in the background. Okay, growing your wealth is super exciting. I get it. But you also have to protect it. And that brings us to the next 15% of your income. Now, this part isn't about growth. It's about building a financial fortress around yourself. Most people think they have a money problem. But what they really have is a stability problem. Think about it. One unexpected bill, your car breaks down, you have a medical emergency. That one thing can force you to sell your investments at the worst possible time. Or worse, go into debt. And just like that, all your progress is destroyed. That's why a stability fund is your first line of defense. So, how do you build it? It's a methodical process. Step 1, calculate your absolute bare bones essential monthly expenses. Then aim to save 5 months worth of that number. Step 2, put that money into a high-yield savings account where it's safe, but it's still earning you a little something. And step 3, automate 15% of your income straight into that account until it's full. Seriously, make this your #1 priority before anything else. And listen, there are 3 non-negotiable rules for this money. First, it has to be easy to access, like within 24 hours. Second, it has to be zero risk. I mean, absolutely not in the stock market. And third, it should never just sit there doing nothing. It must always be earning you at least some interest to fight back against inflation. All right, now for the biggest slice of the pie, the 50%. This is where most financial plans just completely fall apart. And you know why? Because this is where our ego starts to get involved. It's a really fascinating paradox, right? Over 60% of Americans who earn 6 figures are still living paycheck to paycheck. I mean, how is that even possible? It's because they're so busy trying to look rich that they never actually have a chance to become rich. Real wealth, true wealth, is the assets you don't see, not the flashy, expensive liabilities that everyone does. So the game plan here is to cap all your essentials, we're talking rent, groceries, utilities, at 50% of your income. And the absolute fastest way to do this is to attack your 2 biggest expenses head-on, housing and transport. For housing, maybe that means getting a roommate or even renegotiating your rent. And for your car, it means buying a reliable used one instead of leasing a brand new one that's just losing value every single day. Okay, but what about all the smaller spending? Here's the secret. Don't rely on willpower. It's like a muscle, and it gets tired. Instead, build a system. So the next time you're about to buy something you don't really need, just ask yourself one question. Is this an impulse buy? If the answer is yes, force yourself to wait 7 days. I promise you, more often than not, that urge to buy it will completely disappear. But what if you still want it after a week? Okay, fine. Then you ask the next question. Am I buying this for the brand, for the logo, or for the actual value and quality? See, wealthy people chase value, not brands. Think about it. A $60 pair of boots you wear 100 times is way better value than a $200 pair of sneakers you only wear twice. And then there's the final filter, the last question you have to ask. Will this genuinely improve my life in a meaningful, lasting way? Or is it just a quick fix because I'm bored? You have to be really honest with yourself here. This one question is the difference between intentional spending and just wasteful consumption. And that brings us to the final 10%. Now, this might seem like the smallest piece of the puzzle, but honestly, it's arguably the most important one. This is the part of the plan that makes the whole thing sustainable for the long run. See, this 10% isn't just for whatever's left over. No. It's a planned, totally guilt-free rewards fund. Why? Because trying to save every single penny with no enjoyment feels like a punishment. In fact, 92% of people who try that eventually burn out and end up overspending anyway. So think of this as the strategic cheat meal for your finances. It's what keeps you in the game. So, the key is to spend this money wisely. Don't just waste it on more stuff that's just going to collect dust. Spend it on experiences that create real, lasting value. We're talking memories from a vacation, the passion you get from a hobby, or just connecting with friends and family. Because at the end of the day, isn't that what life's all about? So there you have it, the complete 25-25-50-10 rule. It's a framework to stop being owned by your money and finally start owning your future. So really, the only question left is, what are you going to make your money start doing for you starting tomorrow?